This is usually like a
I
great
know.
excuse for me to just catch up with people because
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about Supercrown. So
Oh my
I think
God. Yeah,
maybe for
yeah.
everybody listening, and then also for me, I obviously I know you from Gorilla Coffee.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's what I experienced. But maybe we could like just sort of tie up your background because I know from Gorilla Coffee, and then
Yeah.
after that you've done a bunch of other stuff, and now I would
Mhm.
love to hear what you're doing today because it seems like
Yeah.
you're doing a bunch of stuff. But
hmm
so you opened Gorilla Coffee in what year was that?
Are we recording? Is this part of the podcast?
It's
Yeah.
all
Or
kind
it
of
all is. Oh,
oh
okay.
yeah.
Then you just
Welcome
edit.
to the show.
Awesome. I kind of love that. Maybe I'll give you like my background because it kind of makes sense of where I am now, I guess. I moved to New York in '94. I was an English and art history major, and I went to Head Honor. And the first job I got was at an ad agency, on Fifth Avenue. And yeah, I was like, sure, whatever. And yeah, and I kind of liked it. It was like the agency I worked for was like a kind of a boutique part of a huge agency. But it was kind of had sort of the small feel inside of something pretty big. But I ended up like being an assistant radio buyer, and then I was an account executive. And then then I was like, this is like, I don't want to be this. Like I saw, it was like such stereotypical New York agency folks of like super older, super unhealthy, smoking in their office, you know? And I was just like, I don't want to be that. They're, a couple of the people that I was working for, were just single and seemed miserable. And I'm like, that's just like, I don't know. When you're like, you don't know what you want to do when you grow up. And I'm like, I don't know, I'm 23 and that doesn't seem to be the right direction for me. So, I don't know. I did that for a couple of years though. And then I went to, the first internet agency. Um, I
What
don't
does
know.
that
Do you know
mean?
Scott
Internet
Heiferman?
agency.
So he started this place called iTraffic that ended up being bought by agency.com. But, and then he started Meetup and sold it. I don't even know what he's
Oh
up to
wow.
right now, but, so really smart, like, just totally got the internet, and, I really wanted to work for him. I interviewed for I think several jobs, different jobs that they keep posting, and he's like, "You keep coming in. We keep not hiring, and you keep coming in for different jobs." But I was like, "I really wanna work here." Like, everyone's really young and cool, and, like, I love the internet, and I wanna be part of it and stuff, and so but that's really where I learned how to like build out brand position and brand story and finding customers, finding qualified customers. But, we talked about mindset and all that kind of stuff because the clients we had it was Disney.com, BarnesandNoble.com,
Oh wow.
CD Now. I don't know if you even remember CD Now.
No, I
It
don't.
was like where you would buy CDs online. It
Nice.
seems, at the time it was really cool. It's like, oh my God, they have like everything you could possibly want, on this website. Um,
Wait, so by the way, I missed his name. I
huh?
think I might have asked you a question while you said his name, but who's the guy the guy that you mentioned?
His name is Scott, and his last name is Heiferman.
Gotcha. So he started Meetup,
Yeah.
and then he's got all these businesses, and then you started working
Yeah.
for him.
So I did. So I don't know. That's kind of where I was like, okay, cool. Like I kind of like this whole marketing thing because it was like fun. It was like a game of like, how do we drive traffic? So the name of the place was iTraffic. It was like driving traffic to the site and get people to do something. And in the end, it just became everything was about buying a ticket to the park for Disney or with CD Now, obviously buying CDs and surfing and like capturing people in a certain mindset, whatever. So I liked all of that. And then I worked at a graphic design studio called The Chopping Block, where I was the general manager. And I was working with these really talented graphic designers who they're all like Cooper Union grads.
Hmm.
And I was friends with them. And I kind of was like, well, listen, you guys are not really charging enough for what you're doing. And they liked that. And it was true. And so they hired me. And then I just completely changed their business. But everything was like perfect timing. It was like, this is probably like 97, 96, 97, and there are all these like internet startups that needed everything from like a name to an identity to the website And that was pretty much it, but like that was a lot. And they were doing a lot of these sites in Flash, which was pretty progressive at the
Oh yeah.
time. Yeah. Yeah. So I really love those guys and everything. And then September 11th happened and they pretty much uh they kind of just went back to the four owners and kind of mustered through for a few years and then they kind of all parted ways. But you know, it was kind of like boom bust, you know. I don't know I don't know where you were. Where were you at September
I
11th?
was cooking in New York in Midtown.
Oh. Oh
I was working at a
wow.
restaurant called Oceana on
Oh yeah,
54th
I
in
remember that
Madison.
place. Yeah. Okay.
I was living in Middle Village, Queens when it happened. I like took pictures of the second tower.
Oh shit. Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
I vividly remember that time.
Crazy. Yeah, so I
Yeah.
was living in the East Village on 6th Street. And I was we were there was a They Might Be Giants launch party that
Mm.
we had the night before. So we were all like out late. We're all like hungover. And I'm like, what is going on? I was talking to my mom on the phone. I was watching the Today Show. Like, who even does that anymore? You know, I would be watching the Today Show. I was getting ready. And I'm like, Katie Kirk's talking about the towers getting hit by a plane. It's so bizarre. Yeah, so anyways, and so I pivoted. I was just like, okay, I'm kind of I was at that time, I was like, I want to do my own thing. Like you know, working in that kind of entrepreneurial environment, like with Scott, and then with these guys at the chopping block, you know, they kind of fueled that entrepreneurial spirit for sure. And I was like, I can do this. I want to do this. But I want to do food, you know. I had been a waitress in college and I don't know. And in high school, I worked at Friendly's.
Yeah.
I always loved restaurants. You know what I mean? I always loved food service. Um,
You
and
know,
I just
by the way,
wanted,
I don't mean to stop you, but
yeah,
now that you're saying all this, I have all these other questions because I didn't know this much about your background in like branding and marketing and design.
mm,
And it makes so much sense when you look at the brands that you created because
yeah, thanks.
um, they're such strong brands. Like it's so obvious when you walk, when you would feel like, Gorilla Coffee
Thanks.
and if you look at the Supercrown, it's like such a, like
Yeah.
like a strong like design too.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks. You too.
well,
You know what I mean? Like I loved Bark's brand, you know, and I love Me's too. I don't know,
I like
I'm
four-letter
sure.
words.
You like what?
Four-letter words. For,
Oh,
for
that's awesome.
yeah, I had a sandwich shop in between called Make as well that really loved, but I'm just a
Oh,
big
oh my God.
fan of
Yeah.
four-letter words.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so how did you get into coffee though? Because
Yeah.
I have like a million questions about coffee today that
Mm,
maybe I'll
yeah.
just save some because they're maybe obvious ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
But how did you then get into coffee?
Mhm. Yeah. Well, so I'm, like, drinking my iced coffee right now.
Mm,
This is how it got started. Every morning on my way to work, if I was going to one of those agencies or if I was going or, like, the design studio, I would grab a coffee on my way there, you know, just around the corner. Oh, this is funny.
from where?
From this place called God, it was called Atlas, and then it changed, and it was called, like, Blue Goose, but this is funny. So, you know, Ciao Gloria
No.
and Baked?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Renato, who was one of the founders of Baked, um, he was the manager at this place, and we had really similar backgrounds. He had been working at agencies, and around September 11th, he was like, I wanna open a bakery, a coffee shop or a bakery, you know? And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool because I am working on a business plan right now for a coffee company." So anyways, yeah, I don't know, I feel like I always stay in touch with Ron. I'm actually gonna be in New York, I don't know, next week, and so, I'm gonna definitely go by Chad Glory. I hope I'm gonna catch him, but anyways, his thing is blowing up right now. He's got a book out, and
Wow.
I'm really happy for him because I think he opened this one, like, right before COVID, you know? I'm just like, "God, that guy, like, what terrible luck," you know? And now I'm like, "Oh my god, he's got, like, 33,000 followers on Instagram, and he's got a book out." So anyways, yeah, I'm so excited for
I don't
him.
know why I don't know more about this. I'm like looking at it right now. I'm like Googling it.
Oh, yeah, they're
Um,
on Vanderbilt,
yeah. Um,
right by Barclays.
oh, gotcha. I must have moved out of there after her. Yeah, no, I definitely moved out
Yeah, I
after he
really
opened.
honestly, I think he opened up, like, late 2019.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't
Um,
much coffee. It was basically there was Gorilla Coffee and then eventually Hungry Ghost opened. And that
Oh
was like the
yeah, and
only.
Cafe Grumpy was like in
Oh yeah, that was a little bit down the way.
right in
Yeah,
Williamsburg or
but when
whatever.
you opened,
Yeah. Oh,
there
so
was not
how
a
did
lot
I
of
get into
coffee
coffee?
anywhere.
Yeah. So I started this is 2001. So I just was like, well, I really want to do food. I actually thought I wanted to do hot dogs and fries,
Mm,
you know?
nice job not doing that.
I know. But when I was just like, oh, I don't want to I don't know. I was just like, I kind of was like, well, I'm going to be there a lot. And I don't know if I want to go home smelling like hot dogs.
Hmm.
I don't mind going home smelling like coffee. I had what a weird decision, whatever. But I'm glad to have gone
Both
down the
very
coffee
pungent
path.
smells, by the way.
What?
Both very pungent smells.
I know. Oh my God. Seriously. I know. My brother growing up, he worked at a fish market. And we would always be like, take all your things off at the door. You know what I mean? You've got to get in the shower. You can't, you stink.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, yeah, so I really loved coffee. I was like, this is something that I get every day. I was getting it twice a day. So I'd get one on my way to work. And then,
Hmm.
I would walk to Chelsea. That's where the design studio was. And then in the afternoon, I'd go to the local place and get whatever, like another coffee. I was like, this is cool. I love this. I love people who work there seem to really like it. I love how simple it is. It's like this one thing and then some pastries or whatever. But I also saw really an opportunity because at the time it was like Starbucks everywhere,
Yeah.
which everyone hated. New Yorkers hated, at least the New Yorkers I was around. Because they were taking up every corner, buying up every other coffee shop, and then all of a sudden they're everywhere. And then there are these mom and pop type places that just weren't paying attention to coffee at all.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't know if you remember this, but getting scrambled eggs from a steam wand. You know what I mean? That was a thing, and then then they'd make you a cappuccino. You're just like, that's gross. And and so anyways, I saw an opportunity. I'm like, and also at the same time, the C market, the commodity the commodity market for coffee, which is where the coffee prices are based. In specialty coffee, we do C market plus whatever, so like $1.12 plus or whatever.
Hmm.
But it still determines the price for farmers, and it was really low. It was, I don't know, in the 70s cents or something a pound. And I also saw an opportunity there. I'm like, I'm going to commit to, it's 2001, so much has changed, but to fair trade and organic. So it was a really cool
Yeah, there wasn't a
movement
thing
where it
back
was
then.
like, yeah, it was like small farm holders who were part of a cooperative. And so I liked that, it wasn't just like a company or one person who owned it and everyone else was doing the labor. Like they were all in it together collectively. Um, and it was guaranteeing a minimum price of, I think it was 125 or something. So at the time I was like, well, at the time I was like, well, that seems like kind of a lot, but I'll commit to this and then we'll just adjust our prices accordingly. Um, yeah. And then, so I didn't know anything about coffee roasting, but I wanted to make that product from the beginning, as close to the beginning as I could. So I went out to Idaho to this company called Diedrich, who makes coffee roasters. And they don't do that. I don't know if they do this anymore. Other places, I'm sure they do this. But at the time, they had a seminar where you could take a class with the owner who would tell you about, excuse me, coffee sourcing, importers and
Yeah.
how do you choose coffee and stuff like that. Um, and then
Can
how
you
to roast,
do, you-
different methods for roasting,
do you mind
and
if I ask you a couple questions about that? Because
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
so are there different points in the process where you can actually buy can you buy the bean directly from the farmer, or is it like you're buying the green beans, and then some people buy the fully roasted beans? What's the,
Mm,
where do you usually buy, in one of your types of coffee shops, right? Where you're
mhm,
really thinking about coffee. At
mhm.
what point are you buying the bean?
Well, I was buying from an importer. That's how most roasters do. So there are importers that are based in the US, and being in New York was an advantage because there was a major importer in New York that I started with. So they were out, God, I think they were in Staten Island at the time. So I would go out to their lab, and they had a huge storage facility where I would go, you know, I would I ended up reserving coffees and be like, well, I'm using a lot of this Brazil. And so I'd kind of do the math and be like, I'm going to need to reserve for the year about this much, you
Hmm.
know? And that's how I would buy it. But I would go weekly and pick up coffee
And you
from
would,
them.
do you dictate how they roast, or like where
Oh, no,
you,
I roasted it.
oh, that's right.
I
You guys
would
have the
buy it
roaster.
raw. So coffee comes, it grows on a shrub and it's a cherry. Like people say coffee is a fruit. So it's like this little, it's not particularly sweet, it's kind of tart. It's typically red skinned. And
Uh-huh.
inside those beans, we call them beans, but they're really seeds.
Hmm.
And they're like this, they're like back to back. So like that flat side, they
Yeah.
kind of sit like this. And if it's a pea berry, it's just like this and it's a little
Oh,
more
so it's like
rounded
the seed of a
of a
berry.
fruit.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like kind of a big seed. It's mostly a seed. And then around it is like a thin layer. Well, there's like a silver skin that's around the bean, and then holding each bean together is like a parchment, like a thicker skin.
Uh-huh.
And then around that is like a fruit, and then around that is a skin.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you see like when people are talking about different processing methods when they say processing. So like the cherries are picked, um, ideally when they're ripe, typically by hand. Some places they're picked mechanically. Like Brazil does a lot of mechanical picking, and then everything's sorted with laser sort, whatever, so that you
So,
get ripe.
so
Yeah.
you want the fruit to be ripe and not,
Yeah,
gotcha.
certain like some of the best scoring coffees, they're picked at their peak ripeness.
Yeah.
It's hard to, I mean, this with ingredients, like if it's not, it's hard to correct something that's kind of messed up to start. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah.
like
Well,
when
some
it's a
things
really,
ripen better, like tomatoes sometimes ripen better, like
oh,
you take them off a
interesting.
little bit, but yeah, that's
This
interesting. I
goes
didn't
through a
know that you had to
whole
ripen.
processing method. Yeah. So it's not really, once it's picked, it's going through, I mean, so I like washed coffees, mostly. And so
What's
that's
that
what
mean?
kind of, it means like, so that same day they take, like say you're in Costa Rica and they're hand picking, they're putting them in these capuelas, these like buckets or baskets. And then they, at the end of the day, they're just like putting them down towards the bottom of the mountain or wherever that is where the trucks are. And then the trucks are taking them to the mill to take that skin off, wash off that fruit, and put them out on a drying bed or
Uh-huh.
a drying patio, And so, and then then they rotate them and they stay out however long, and hopefully there's no rain. Um, there's also some farms have dryers,
Yeah.
which so there's all these different, there's all these quality assurance steps along that way, right? Where they've got someone measuring the moisture content, um,
What do they
the
do with the fruit?
time.
Like with all the residual fruit that gets washed off?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, so there's a thing called cascara, which in Spanish means skin.
Hmm.
And so it sort of has like a plum taste to it. And so some people use that for tea because it's waste,
Yeah.
and they would have to at the farms they would just put it, like larger firms, they can like put it back onto the farm, like it just like falls
Oh,
into
like
the
compost kind of thing.
soil.
Yeah.
It's like compost, yeah.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
also has like high acidity, right? So you always have to like balance all that kind of stuff. Um, yeah, but then I don't know. That's like there's all ever since I've been in coffee, and even maybe more so now, or still so now. People are always talking about like how do you create more revenue streams or wealth for farmers,
Hmm.
because they're in the whole chain, they're the ones that
Yeah, I'm
don't
sure.
don't make out very well.
Especially if the
Yeah,
price is almost like set for them.
yeah, and it's just like, I mean, just like all that stuff that I described, that's like maybe like 25%. There's still so much more that happens there. Like they have lab technicians, they've got Q graders who are cupping, they have roasters on site. At the very least, like a sample roaster so they can, um, roast and grade the coffee and
Hmm.
see if there are defects or,
How much
uh,
does weather impact like the entirety of the crop, like an aggregate? Like
a
there's like a
lot.
rainy weather.
Yeah, yeah, a lot. Yeah, there's kind of this, new brand called Win. It's, have you seen it? It's,
Mm-mm.
RTD. I don't know. So this woman, she's from Brooklyn. Um, it's like
Oh, I
Nguyen, I
have
think.
seen it. Yeah, yeah. Somebody sent me like
Okay.
a gift box of it.
Oh, cool. Okay. So she's American. She's like I think generation Vietnamese.
Hmm.
Her family's Vietnamese. And
Yeah.
so she's buying from Vietnamese farms, coffee farms. I think they're mostly Robusta, which is, we've been talking about Arabica. Robusta
Hmm.
is like what we used to think of with like Folgers and Maxwell House and that kind of stuff. It's like higher caffeine, doesn't taste as nice, but um,
When you
I don't
say it
know. I
doesn't
think
taste it nice, is it like more acidic? Is it just mellower? Like not as flavorful? Like what's the difference in
I
flavor
mean,
profile?
honestly, like my perception of it and I have cupped so little Robusta, it just never will went across our tables. And even like El Salvador, the whole country bans the growing of Robusta
Wow.
because it gets into they have like they're really precious about their specialty coffee and
Uh-huh.
you get more money for it. And anyways,
Yeah.
so anyways, it's a topic like we could have a whole podcast on Robusta, but um anyways, all that is to say is Vietnam, although I don't know, I think they just got hit really badly with some tropical stuff, but I think the Robusta grows lower and is more resilient to climate change.
Hmm.
So that's a little bit of the pitch for it, and then they make it. I haven't even tried her product. I should maybe
Yeah.
when I'm in New
I
York,
had
I'll
it
just
in
like,
a I made a pour over with it. It was pretty good. Um
okay, cool, yeah. I don't think she's doing all Robusta anymore, but yeah, so I'm not sure what you drank. But yeah, so anyways, yeah, climate is a huge and it's even within one country, even like a neighboring farm, like their microclimates. So
yeah,
like one
yeah.
farm will be like, "Oh, I get a ton of rain every day at 2."
Yeah.
And the other firm that's just like, like within eyesight is like, "Oh, we have it's pretty drier over here." You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
climate is a huge
It's so
factor.
interesting, like how much has to happen before it even like you
I
do it
know.
well at the coffee shop.
I
When you have a
know.
good
Oh my
cup of
God. I
coffee,
know. I
it's
know.
crazy. So like obviously they have to, the agriculture has to be really good. They have to be good farmers. They have to,
Hmm.
all these critical points along the way before they even like harvested. And
Yeah.
then they're cleaning it, washing off the fruit and drying it.
Hmm.
And then after
Hmm.
it's dried, is that then when it's shipped?
No, then it's stored. So they typically will keep it in the pergamino or parchment,
Mm-hmm.
that thicker skin in bags and burlap bags, usually, I think also plastic and burlap. I'm not sure. I think both, but um, in a climate controlled warehouse, ideally.
To
Um,
ferment or something? Why are they storing it? Like why do they
oh,
why do why do they not just ship it right away to after it's
oh,
dried?
it's resting.
Gotcha. What
It's
does that
part of the
do?
process. Yeah, so I don't know, it's not fermenting. It shouldn't be if it was washed, but
Yeah.
it's just like, I don't know, just kinda coming into itself, I guess,
How long does
you
that
know?
happen for?
I don't know, couple weeks maybe? I think
Oh,
that the
okay.
cycle is somewhat short, but it is a step that happens. And it changes, like a fresh crop tastes different from at the end of the year, you know? Like,
Yeah.
like before I mean, honestly, like it's best if you can just always have fresh crop coffees. So, but it's just like logistically, it's difficult and it puts a lot of pressure on
It
farms,
seems
I
like there
think.
must be a lot of competition with all these coffee shops or coffee companies to who
Yeah.
gets the best of the crops from the certain farmers, and
Oh, I don't think there's that much competition
is there just
there,
enough supply where that's not an issue?
I think so. I mean, and then, there's like, I mean, I guess maybe there's like some that are like really, so like a farm, um, that has, like, really high scoring coffee. Say, like, they're Cup of Excellence winners or some international award that people really recognize or Best in Panama or whatever. So they'll typically have some that are so, like, specialty coffee score is from 80 to 100, 80 being the lowest, and a lot of the coffees that we drink are in the 80s, maybe high 80s if you're going to a good place.
Mm-hmm.
Um And then when they really start getting unique and special when you're in the 90s. And you pay more for those coffees,
Yeah.
so something that scores is something that like won Best of Panama, and it was like a certain varietal that everyone's excited about. I mean, they can go for like $100 a pound, three
Oh,
hundred
that's
dollars a
nuts.
pound.
Who drinks?
Yeah.
Like, where does that get? That's probably not even sold. Right? It's just like you're enjoying.
Well, that's funny you say that. Like some people, I mean, people, we would say that like roasters would just buy that for the prestige because they would get published of like
Hmm.
this coffee roaster just bought the Best of Panama, whatever,
Yeah.
this crop and stuff. But I don't know, they just put it in small little packages and sell it, and they'll do pour overs, be like a $12 pour over
Yeah.
or more. I don't know. Yeah. Um,
It would have
but
to be more, right? Isn't it? Isn't there like almost an ounce, or no? I guess it would be about a half ounce, like 24 grams in a cup of coffee, right? Something like that.
I guess so. It seems high. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've been doing a batch of like it's 10 cup. So it's really, I don't know. But it's 70 grams to weigh it out.
Okay, so 7 grams. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I haven't
that's.
done a pour over in years. I'm gonna do
You know
math.
what's funny? So I wanted to ask you about this
Yeah.
because I did pour over for like for many years up until like a year and a half, maybe like 2 years ago, because I was doing pour over of this counterculture being that like I was getting like subscription of up here in Westchester, and
Oh, cool.
because there's not a lot of coffee get up here,
Mm.
um and then a friend of mine sent me the same coffee bean in this thing called Cometeer. Have you ever heard of Cometeer?
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's frozen.
It's really fucking good. I was like,
Cool.
wait a
Yeah,
second, this
yeah.
doesn't make any sense. Like, why is this? It was like as good, if not better, than the pour over.
Oh,
And
that's
I made
amazing.
sure like the pour, like the time and the. I mean, I think you taught me how to do a pour over. You
Oh,
also taught me how to make
maybe.
cold brew, but like,
Yeah.
it was like I made sure I did it the right way, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
why this? I don't know what the process is of this cold material. I think they like bulk, you know, like they cook it all like very like cook and they wouldn't reduce it. Maybe they just like cook it at a very high concentration and then freeze it right away or something. But it's really good.
I wonder. I am.
I'm drinking it right now.
You are? That's so cool.
Now they have like all these. So I get like 4 different flavors a week, and they
That's
have
cool.
everything intelligent. They have all these brands like Red Bay and
Oh,
George
okay. Yeah,
Howell
yeah, yeah.
and like I never know what half
They
of
have
them
a
are.
George Howell, you said?
Yeah. There's I mean, there's a
Well, that
bunch.
makes a huge difference of who you're drinking. So, who are
Um,
you drinking right now?
well, this one right here, I'll tell you is no, this isn't the Onyx, but I had the
Uh,
there's I'll try and pull it up real quick because I just
yeah.
here we go because it's really good. Like what did I get here? Let's see here.
I'll
So
try
they give
it.
you like a mix of different roasts as well.
Uh-huh.
Um, and now I have to like find the coffees curated box. Here we go. And and I'm also curious how they do like the like how does a coffee become light versus medium versus dark, or it's like what makes a strong cup of coffee? Like how do they? Is that just the
Oh,
actual bean itself?
no, it's the way you roast it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Here, you'll appreciate this. This is my analogy. So if you have, I don't know, if you're, let me think. Like say you got someone gave you, have you ever baked bread?
Yeah, yeah.
So if someone gave you like this really beautiful grain, and you were going to make a loaf of bread with it, you would do it to a certain way, I would imagine, where you're like bringing out, so you could like actually taste that sweetness of that grain, right? And you're like, oh my God, like whatever would be a good one, amaranth, or I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's how I feel about coffee roasting. If you're paying like a lot of money, let's just say, I think it's like you start on the like you pay a lot of money. So when you get a really good quality green coffee, what do you do with it? You roast it light. You know what I mean? Or you just would never dark roast that,
Yeah. I,
because you would lose all of that delicateness and sweetness and like all that. So I think, I don't know, my approach with coffee roasting has always been, and especially with Supercrown, was like just bringing out what's there.
yeah. Yeah.
you
So
know?
it depends on the bean how you roast it. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, and then yeah, you just, so whenever I see dark roast, it's like, okay, that's fine, but that's like an mid-80s scoring coffee, low 80s scoring
Yeah.
coffee. It's just like, just put milk and sugar in it. It's just like a different drink, you know?
Yeah.
But
I like the
mm,
medium and like and maybe just because of the coffees that there's there.
oh
So
yeah,
I'll read some
yeah.
of the brands that when they send it, it's always like they'll just pick 4 and send it to you. So they have
Okay. You
Houseplant.
can't choose. You can't be like, I always want this roaster.
Now they finally create. I'm in the beta for like choosing the ones you want. It's more so I
Mm,
choose the ones I didn't want. Like
okay.
I mean, no offense, Joe Coffee. I'm not a big fan. Um, but Houseplant, Intelligentsia, Birch, Bird Rock, Square Mile, whatever that is, Black and
That's
White.
England.
And then they have Clatch and something called GGET,
Go get 'em, Tiger.
Onyx,
Yeah.
Go Get 'em
Onyx.
Tiger. Yep.
Okay.
George Howell, Red
Yeah.
Bay,
Uh-huh.
Equator. So these
Uh-huh.
are all the ones they have. I actually really like the Houseplant. I think like Seth Rogen invested in it or something. Have you
House
ever?
plant.
Yeah, it's really good.
Okay.
Yeah, he's like the face of it. But yeah, it's called Houseplant. It's really good. Anyway, most of them are really good. They also have counterculture, but they just send you 4 different boxes every week, and they're all mostly really good.
And how do
Um,
they come? Are they like with
so
freeze packs
it's
or
yeah, that
ice
comes in
with
with
liquid ice?
the packaging is certainly not as eco-friendly as you'd like. It's a
Yeah.
big box with bunch of freezer packs, and then there's 4 8-packs of these pods, and
Okay.
and they send that every week, so we get it every week, and
And then
it's
you
I mean,
just pour hot water over it,
so
and that's your cup
I
of
actually
coffee?
had a hot water tap installed in my kitchen,
Oh,
so
nice.
just for this purpose. So I literally just pour it's
Uh,
at like 199 degrees or something, and like
nice.
the pod like melts really quickly. So I just drop
Uh-huh.
the pod in some hot water and then like pour it into a cup of hot water, and that's it. And it's like it's basically just like concentrated frozen coffee. Um,
Yeah.
but it's really
Yeah.
good.
I think they're brewing it. They must be brewing it like this Japanese method. I don't know. I have to like look on their website. It's not cold brew
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it
because
wouldn't
you wouldn't get all that like with cold brew. It sort of tastes like that method of cold brewing, you know.
unless they
But people.
you showed me this other. So we had at Bark we used the Gorilla Coffee cold brew. We made a concentrate of it.
Hmm.
So I think, but you gave us a recipe, which I think was like 8 gallons of water to 5 pounds of coffee, and
Yeah.
I think that might have been it. I
Hmm.
don't remember, to be honest with you, but
Yeah. I
we
don't
did like
either.
basically like 1/8 of the amount of water, and then we just used that concentrate in the milkshake.
Oh, that's
Um,
right. Oh, yeah. That was
it was
so
really fucking good.
good.
Yeah, it was really fucking good. But then
Yeah.
you showed us this other method, which was like a hot. There's basically like a pour over with ice
Yeah,
in the
that's my
thing.
favorite method, and I'm pretty sure that's what the comitier is doing. It's called Japanese method, but
Uh,
you're adjusting your grind settings, and typically you grind a little bit finer than you would for drip. You adjust your dosing. You typically do a slightly more of a dose than you would for like a hot batch. But all these, like, these are all the things you just like dial in so that you're like, that's it. That's like what I want. And I've done it at home recently, but I did it that's how we brew it at Gorilla, and same thing with Supercrown. But yeah, you brew it hot over ice. And
oh,
so it kind of, when you make those adjustments for this type of method, yeah, you get all that nuance in the coffee, you know? And then it's like stronger. So then you add ice and it like holds up, you know? But it
yeah,
really, cold brew tastes to me, I think some people may agree with me, it tastes like the method of cold brew. Like you taste cold brew and you're like, that that was a cold brew method
yeah,
first. And I just want to be like, I want to be like, what does this coffee taste like? Not what was that method.
yes, yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So,
And some people make like iced coffee, which I guess they're just like making coffee and cooling it down. Is that?
oh,
I don't
yeah.
know. I'm asking. You know, when you
Yeah,
see like
yeah,
iced
yeah.
coffee on a menu, like, is that what that means?
Well, I mean, I called this iced coffee for years, but it was this method. Yeah, there's a lot of dumb ways to do it that, you could just like, I mean, it's sort of like what people do at home. Whenever I visit my friends, they're just like, oh, well, that pot of coffee we're not using it anymore. So they just put it in the fridge. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
it's been sitting out for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So that's cool. It's just like caffeine delivery system,
So
you know.
so we kind of get a sense of like this, you know, when you have
Mm,
a really good cup of coffee, all the elements. I mean, we could probably talk about that for hours, like what
yeah.
happens on the farm, and then you know while they're resting it, and as they're shipping it,
Mm,
there's probably a lot of
mhm,
other things. And
mhm.
but like, let's just say you just go to a bodega around the corner and you get a cup of coffee. You know,
Uh-huh.
what
Mhm.
what's that? What's happening
What
with
is
that?
it?
Yeah, what's happening with that cup of coffee? Like, how is that
Oh,
different?
what's up with that? I mean, they would just if like those bodegas are buying from, if, like let's talk about New York. So they're buying from typically, I would imagine like one of the like old school roasters where they can give them basically it's just a price game. Like, can you give me equipment? I'm going to be going through a lot. So like, oh yeah, great. We'll give you your brewer and we'll make sure to maintain it or whatever or not. Who knows?
Yeah.
Um, and then they'll buy I don't even they would call it specialty, so they're probably just buying, like, low 80s scoring coffee,
Hmm.
roasted medium to dark, and that's the consistency. So it's like, at the best, it's chocolatey,
Yeah.
you know?
So they're buying already roasted beans, and they're just
Oh,
and probably
yeah,
already
yeah,
roasted and
yeah.
ground, and they're just kind of like
Yeah,
throwing
everyone
it.
if you're brewing coffee only, but the only roasters turn the coffee from buy the green coffee and then roast it.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
what does Starbucks do then? Like, what's their? Do
they're
they sell like?
roasters.
But they don't roast in each store, so they have like centralized
Oh,
roasting in
no,
there,
no, no, they've got a huge facility in Seattle.
and they just sort of distribute from there.
Mhm.
Yeah. So they're like roasting it and grinding it and sending it, right?
I don't think so. I think they're
No, they send a
whole
whole.
bean. Yeah, you've
Yeah.
gotta have a grinder. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know, man. Honestly, maybe they might have them in what's called frac packs, like fractional packs, which are yeah. I worked at Starbucks and, at Astor Place when I was writing my business plan for Gorilla.
I remember
I
that
was
one.
like, I
Yeah.
wanna, like, learn as much as I can because I was like, how do you even and honestly, I was just like, how do you operate a coffee bar, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
was like, "Is there a manager, like key holder, like how do you handle cash?" You know what I mean? Like I didn't know how that worked, and so I worked at the Astor Place one. So when I was there, it came in 5-pound bags and you would weigh it out and grind it. But I'm sure now, just for consistency and ease and a less training, you just have it in a like they grind it and put it in vacuum sealed
Yeah.
bags.
And what is like what do you think like the typical scoring of a bean from Starbucks is?
80s, low 80s.
Low 80s too.
Well, it
Yeah.
depends. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? It's they're roasting everything so dark. It's like, okay, it's like I can't how do you even like determine? Like they've got notes on the bags of like, oh, citrus. I'm like, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't drink Starbucks unless and I won't, but if I'm stuck at an airport somewhere where that's all they have, it has to
Yeah.
be like the light roast, otherwise I just
Oh,
can't really drink it, you know.
that's really funny. On road trips, if I'm lucky, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, there's a Dunkin' Donuts." Yeah, but it's just like, yeah. And then you're just like, they are so intense with the milk and sugar though. You're like, I just want like one, you have to like really specify at Dunkin' Donuts, otherwise you just like walk away this sugary thing.
Yeah. I can't drink milk, so like I have drink black
Oh,
coffee. Every
oh
once in a while I'll
yeah,
have some cream in there, but like
right.
um yeah, milk doesn't do so well for me. So you
Is
were
that
talking
a
about
new
like
development? Yeah, terrible. I'm
like
sorry to hear.
you know what's funny? When I hit I'm 43 now. When I
Uh-huh.
hit 30, I like developed this allergy to live yeast. And so I
Oh,
couldn't drink beer or wine or sake anymore. So I haven't had a beer in like 13 years. And then I did this like diet for like 6 months. And I shouldn't have done it for 6 months and I shouldn't have done it all, but that's just kind of how I do things. And it was no
yeah.
sugar, no alcohol, no
Wow.
caffeine, no gluten, and no dairy. And I felt amazing afterwards. And then I couldn't eat a lot of that stuff ever again. Like, all of a
Oh,
sudden, I had a
shoot.
gluten sensitive. I mean, I eat gluten, but not as
Yeah,
much. And like, I had dairy sensitivity, and
yeah.
I mean, I
Those
still
are all
drink.
that's all, well, I don't know about the caffeine part, but those are all the things that are people have problems with, though.
Yeah,
Dairy, sugar, and sugar is a tough one,
sugars
man.
are real tough. Yeah, because I love desserts.
Me too. Me too. I know. I love making. My new thing is like baking layer cakes. Oh, because I'm in Denver now, and it's like a mile high, so
Mm-hmm.
it's like a whole thing where that's like I feel like I always like a little barrier to entry. It kind of gives the challenge a little more interest to me. And so I'm like, oh, how do I adjust my recipe for altitude so that my cakes don't sink?
Yeah.
Because I
What
started
are the typical adjustments you make?
every single ingredient. It's like
Really?
you adjust the dry, you adjust the wet, you adjust the temperature and the time.
Whoa.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, like Claude AI, like AI is great
Uh-huh.
for this kind of thing. Where I take like, because before I would sit down and I would do all the, and I'm like not a math person, so I'm
Yeah.
like making all the adjustments, um, and my last one, I just did this strawberry lemonade cake from the New York Times. It was amazing. Came out perfect the first time. So I'm psyched about that. But I took the recipe from the New York Times and then I took the adjustments from King Arthur.
Uh-huh.
And I put them into Claude and I was like, make these adjustments for
That's
5280
awesome.
elevation. I know.
Oh, I gotta
And
make a
it
note
came
about
out
that.
and I was
Wow.
like, and I've read through it and I'm like, that's amazing. So
I'm writing this down right now.
yeah.
Um, it's actually a really cool feature.
Claude is great for math.
Feature adjust for elevation. I love that.
Mm.
Sorry, I just had to make a note about that. All right. Well, you were talking about like you worked at Starbucks to kind of like learn the coffee operation, and now you do a lot
Mhm.
of consulting for a lot of these
Yeah.
like types
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
brands. But like, what I'm so curious. I've never run a
Yeah.
coffee shop, but I obviously you go in, you see, okay, these people are making coffee after coffee after coffee. It's a lot of like
Mm.
manufacturing process, but like
Mhm.
online. Um,
Yeah.
I'm really just curious, like, what's like the typical what's like the typical margin or EBITDA of a coffee shop when it's
Mm.
like decent, and what are like the most volatile or like variable aspects of the operation that you've seen people
Yeah.
get like right or wrong?
Yeah. That's a great question, jeez. Um, obviously, you make more margin if you are roasting the coffee, you know? Um, so you're buying, I don't know, like, say you're buying the coffee at 3.50 a pound, and then you roast it, you lose 20%, whatever, there's packaging involved and labor. But versus 11, 12, and up a pound.
Oh wow, it's a big difference
Mhm.
if you're buying it roasted.
Yeah, and then and then you can sell bags of coffee,
Hmm.
you know? You could also do this as, like, there's so many coffee brands right now, why I'm, like, find this interesting. This is the challenge for me is, like, there's so many coffee companies out there, so it's like, how do you stand out? But, you can so anyways, there's the companies that do private label. So, like, a larger roaster, or even smaller roasters are just doing private label for, like, people who are like, "Hey, I really wanna have a coffee company. I got someone who's like" oh, some of my friends have this thing that they need coffee for and, or they're, like, an influencer, and so you know what I mean? There's just, like
Yeah,
that's the world, right? Where you could just, like, turn on a brand within a week, and then you have a product, you know? So, um but if, like, the traditional model is, like, roaster, and then you do the retail, or you sell to someone who's doing the retail, or you're, like, you don't do retail at all, like Counterculture, which,
hmm,
that was a really interesting move on their part. It's just, like, they're just doing wholesale, and they just do that wholesale game really well, so they just really focus on sourcing and roasting and packaging, and then they market
yeah.
too, within the specialty
They're,
coffee.
they're the only brand that I remember in the restaurants. I remember Counterculture coming and training us on how to make the coffee.
Yeah, that's great.
And I
Well, yeah,
hadn't.
Intelligensia would do all the companies would
They do that
train
now.
you.
Yeah, I mean, this was like maybe 15, 20 years ago, but
Yeah, yeah, that was and they were big in New York, you know? They're based out of North Carolina, so
yeah,
they're kind of like East Coast brand. Um, but yeah, and they had really good reps in New York, and that's sort of like that's where they really spend their money and
hmm,
focus. And they're a great company. Like, they do transparency reports on how much they're paying for their coffee, and, at the end of the year, they always do like a that's some roasters do that where they're just like, "This is how much we paid."
yeah.
And yeah.
So what's like the ideal like? Are there like standardized like this should be the food cost percent of a cappuccino?
Oh, I mean, yeah, the markup is great. I actually put together a calculator um, for I'm working with a coffee roaster in Reno for him to give to his wholesale accounts. Let me pull it up. Let's see.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. We have a lot of coffee
uh,
shops as customers in Meez and Meez. There's all these um, just putting not just the food recipes in there, but like all of the coffee recipes in there. And we haven't done much with it, but I bet there's a lot of similarities, if not exact same, of like the
mhm.
recipes for each.
So, like, here's an example.
Okay, so there's the green cost. So that's just basically buying the green bean in this
Right. And
spreadsheet, and then
yeah, and so these are all like these are hard coded in there. I'm just we'll say I'm paying 358 for the green coffee. And then if you lose 20% in roasting, which is it's typical,
mm-hmm.
I just multiply it by 1.25, and that's what it is roasted. This is the cost to your bag. Here's your
It's an
cons, your
expensive
markup.
bag. Well, $2
Oh
a
my
bag.
God. Oh, I know. Tell me about
Jeez.
it. Well, that's like, yeah, that's, this. It's like if you're a smaller roaster, and you just, for 5 pound bags, yeah, prices for bags have gone up a lot since COVID. But yeah,
Yeah. So
that's
40
a
cents
big
for a
nut to swallow.
sticker.
But you make
So
a lot, you know what I mean? Like the wholesale price is this and this is what your costs
so that's
are.
the
So,
wholesale price. What do you
mm-hmm.
have this when you get down to the cup, like making a cup of
Yeah,
coffee?
let's see.
Because what's like the typical cost of a cappuccino right now, or like a latte? It was like $4 or $5 on that.
So the cost of the coffee cost is so for 8-ounce drip, and I've just gone through all this, like a
Yep.
latte,
Yep.
you
So this is
know.
for buying roasted beans.
Yes, yeah, for their partners. So,
Yep.
okay, the cost of your coffee, so in this case, the 8-ounce latte, it's 38 cents, based on $12 a pound.
Mm-hmm.
This is what your milk costs are, then your milk per drink,
Yep.
your cost, lid cost, sleeve cost, syrup, and then total, yeah. So then, so you got your total cost is 67 cents. The markup is 3.5, and then the menu price. And I feel like these prices are on the low end, but that's good because then, okay, but then you can, mark it up by 5. There you go. You know,
Um. Yeah. That seems actually because that looks like you're around like a 28% food cost for in general for
uh-huh.
those things, and then you have
Yeah.
to factor in the um. I'm just doing a couple of these right here divided by 764. So yeah, they're all basically a 28.5% food cost. But then you have to have somebody to make that. So I
Oh,
would think
yeah.
you would consider the cost of the person making it as part of the cost of the cup of coffee, right?
Oh, do you? Yeah. I mean, geez. I
I'm
mean,
just
then
thinking. I'm just
yeah. I mean, well, and then that's a really good point. And so that ties into like what kind of equipment are you using?
oh yeah.
There's, you know what I
Are
mean?
there coffee shops that use equipment to just make the whole thing?
Mm, there's a company that's pretty good. They're called Eversys. They do super automatic espresso machines.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and I mean, you have to maintain them and stay on top of them, right? But yeah, they'll make the consistent espresso.
Yeah.
They dial it in and all this stuff. You set all the parameters. They'll constantly adjust and whatever. So I had one of these at Supercrown. Um,
What
as
is
kind
it?
of like
What
a,
is
a
like
test site.
on average like uh how many minutes do you think it takes to make a cappuccino? 2 minutes?
Oh, less. Oh my God, less. If that's what you're making from start to finish, and
Yes.
assuming,
Clean up,
like,
wipe
so
down.
assuming like you've got a busy bar and your like grinder's already, so in a manual way,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like your grinder's already like dialed in, so you're just like getting like Gorilla or Supercrown, like they could make them really quickly as long as
Yeah.
like it's all set up, right? And then throughout the day you're adjusting your grinder. But for the most part, and someone whose skill can just kind of, and then it's almost like I always felt like the busier we were, the faster those drinks would come out. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So they were
Yeah.
just kind of in a flow of like, pulling for 3 different drinks at a time,
Yeah. Yeah. But at least
finishing
a
up.
minute, right? At least you would think at least a
Yeah.
minute per,
Yeah.
because even if you're paying someone a barista, like what, 15, $20 an hour, I would
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
And then you got payroll taxes. So if it's 20, you're talking about $22 an hour.
Yeah.
And if it's 1 minute, that's already like 36 cents for that cup of coffee on top of the
Mhm.
28% food cost. So
Wow,
you're
yeah. That's a really yeah. Wow.
that's a high cost for that cup of coffee.
Well, honestly, and,
I mean, high, like a very low margin, because if
yeah, I'm
you,
really interested to see what the prices are. Yeah, I've in Denver, I feel like the prices are, I don't know, probably pretty low. There's some
hmm
really good coffee companies here.
yeah,
Um, I don't know, like, I don't know what's low, like $6 for a latte? But I think a friend of mine was in San Francisco, a coffee person, and they were just like I think they said that like a 10-ounce, 12-ounce latte was something like, I don't know, $10 or something. Because they
that's,
have
yeah.
they have what are they? I feel like the minimum wage is just really high there, and I
But
don't
I
know.
mean, it's like it's a linear, like every cup of coffee requires a person to make it unless you have a machine. And so,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, I guess they are also, no, they're not typically the person that's taking your order. It's usually somebody behind taking the order, right? Unless
Someone
you
else,
evolve.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is happening everywhere, right? Yeah. Yeah, this is like where we need to talk about like where's the proper balance of like automation with
hmm
people, you know, for consistency. And I don't know, it's just like, yeah, COVID's really turned everything upside down, I think. Um, in
Where
terms
do
of
coffee shops like are they making their margin on the drip or like on baked goods because there's no labor? Like,
oh man, I mean the model, it's like a volume, really. It's
yeah,
like really you just have to it's a volume business. And so, and you go into a coffee shop and there's no one in line and everyone's like on their laptops. You're like, that's not a healthy business. Um, and then, and then just a little bit unfortunately, maybe like just times have changed. And so like a lot of people are getting into food. They're not
hmm
really, I did that at Supercrown. I'm like, like everyone, it was kind of like the Australian cafe. It was like exploding. And I'm like, I have to do egg sandwiches and
yeah,
toasts and stuff. And so I have to have a cook on staff. And well, while there's downtime, I'm gonna have them do juices. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
so it's just like the model is different. And so if you're in a busy spot, and then it's just like you're thinking about like your footprint. Like you don't want a huge space. Unless you have a different, I don't know. There's companies that you know this, like, yeah, like they're playing a different game. They're just trying to build market share at whatever cost to sell,
hmm
and so, they have this theatrical experience and whatever. They're not that busy, but they've got a beautiful space. I feel like this happens in LA and certain parts of California. You see it. Maybe New York. I'm excited to go back and see like where, it's been, I think 4 years. I was back maybe 4 years ago. So it'll be really interesting to see like really post COVID, like what's going on here. The founder of Chipotle he opened a vegan concept, I think near the Flatiron.
He has a concept called Kernel. I had the
That's
friends and
right.
family there. It was really good. Um,
Interesting. Yeah. And so that's mostly robots.
yeah, yeah. And there's a coffee company called Blank Street that
Oh yeah.
seems to be doing really
I
well.
know the operations person there, Wendy.
Um, I know
Mm.
the CEO is in this like little group that I'm in, but
Mm.
we've been meaning to catch up, but or like I sent him a note a couple times, but it seems like
Mhm.
they're doing really well, and it seems like they're trying to keep it like super simple, and they're scaling. So
Mhm.
that's like sort of, I guess, that low footprint and volume model. But one of the problems with coffee shops, I imagine, is the day part problem, right? Like
It's a what?
the day parts, like you can't there's not a lot of business at night. So
Oh my
you
god,
got to make all
yeah.
your money, early morning. That's why I always think it's crazy when I see coffee shops that don't open till like 8:30 or something. Like, what are you doing?
Oh my god, yeah, I
I
know.
was at a place in where was I in San Francisco, and I was staying in like the Chinatown area, or just outside of Chinatown and there was a really nice coffee shop a block or so from the hotel, and I went for a run in the morning, and I got there at like 7:30, and they were closed. And I'm like, dude, people
I
wake up
know.
early here, man. What are you doing?
It's crazy, man. I know. Yeah. I'm shocked in Denver a lot too, where I'm like, just a food place will be closed on a day. I'm like, why do you close on Sundays? You know what I mean? Like, that's one of your heaviest volume days.
Yeah. Well,
Anyways.
you were talking a lot about, and I think I saw it in your on your website as well. It's sort of just a lot of what you're doing now isn't just the product
Mm.
of coffee or the operations, but also
Oh,
just like branding and positioning
yeah.
and like
Yeah, so that's like really what I'm doing. Yeah, it's like so the company's called Black Sheep. I kind of just came up with this name because I'm like I feel like I've always been a black sheep and and just like the idea is like it's just like own your difference, like lean into it because like that's kind of where you're special and where you're unique. And so everyone that I talk to, like that's kind of the first thing that we talk about is like, okay, tell me about you and what you're doing. Cause, so I do everything from, from brand positioning. And then I work with, excuse me, with partners who do graphic design, web stuff. They do all the graphic parts, but I'll basically do all the brand work beforehand. And I'll do competitive landscape analysis. So like who are the top 10 competitors? Like if it's, if they're a regional coffee roaster, I'll be like, who are the top players in your region? And what are they doing? And I do a SWOT analysis, like strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. What's their value proposition? It seems it's really tedious process, and some people are kinda like, "Oh, I kinda know who my competitors are." I'm like, "Let me just do this because like, I have all these preconceived ideas before going into it, but then you always find out, like, you kinda cull all that information, and you're like, "Well, here's an opportunity for you." Like, these guys are all sort of saying this kinda stuff, and this is where your product is unique, your where you can position yourself, for example, like it could be something as simple as like this company in Minnesota that I was talking to, like they roast with an air roaster,
what's that?
and it's like I mean it's just most
It's kind
people
of like
run
air frying.
air fryer. No. I don't know I don't even have an air fryer. Um, it's just like a different method of roasting. So most do it in a drum, and it rotates, and you're doing this profile. So air roasting, it's just a different method. It's like hot air that's blowing the coffee around and then you control it in a different way. But it's a unique process. It's pretty rare. And I don't know, you get different types of coffee out of it,
I just
And
Googled it.
so,
Air roasted
yeah.
is coffee that
Uh,
is roasted on a fluid bed of hot air as opposed to the traditional method of tumbling in hot steel drum.
oh,
That's
nice.
interesting.
Where'd you get that answer?
I
That's
just
correct.
Google.
Oh, is it AI's Google? Google's AI?
Yeah, which by the way is getting a lot better. Um, the Google AI.
It's crazy though, but
Yeah.
don't you think like what is that gonna do as a marketer? I'm like, what is that gonna do for Google Ads? You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
it's
or
interesting.
your search engine optimization, which has always been a pain point for everyone. Or like, how do I get better SEO results? And you're like, I don't know. Do you really even need to worry about it anymore? Because like, if you Google, you kind of look at the top result, which is an AI answer.
Yeah. Well, I guess the it depends on on what you're optimizing for. But
Mm,
if you look for tell me the 10 best coffee roasters in my
hmm.
area,
Oh
the
yeah,
AI
yeah,
might
yeah.
have an answer, but then how do you get in that top 10?
That's right. Yeah, you
That's
need a link
probably
there.
an interesting thing to figure out. I don't know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like ChatGPT at least, and maybe Google does this, and I'm not sure, but like they will give they'll cite sources. So
Oh,
that's been really helpful. I think you might have to ask.
ChatGPT does that?
Yeah, you might have to ask, but I know sometimes when I'm looking for statistics or data, I
Mm,
will ask ChatGPT to like make sure you give me the source. The source is
yeah.
not always right, by the way. So there's still work to do there. But
Oh
it's
yeah, I
but it's
know.
but it's pretty helpful in general.
Okay, that's
Anyway,
cool.
so yeah, you're
Anyways, like
distinguishing.
just differentiating, you know what I mean? It can be as simple as that, but just like kind of leading into that part of your differentiation, and then you just, validate things with like testimonials and stuff like that. And then I don't know. So I work with people from all of that, from brand positioning. Sometimes that means like doing their logo or a brand refresh. I'm doing a brand refresh right now. This guy who's got this really cool product. It's a new type of coffee lid. He's an engineer, but he's also happens to be a super taster. So and the super taster part of his experience wasn't on anything that he was talking
Yeah.
about. And I'm like, if you're trying to reach its primary target, and also I was like, your primary target's like coffee roasters with multiple retail locations.
Hmm.
That's your primary target. And then you can get the like small, like independent, single shop places, but you really need those folks to buy in because that's where they've got the staff, they've got the Q graders and all the people who care about the difference in this lid and how that sensory perception is better, how you get a better mouth feel because of he changed a couple things with the hot lid and it's really interesting. But anyways, he was just like he's getting decent sales, but like not enough, and so we're doing a brand refresh, but also I'm like, that's like the other day he told me that he was a super taster. And I'm like, that's amazing. And that's gonna be part of your story because you and super tasters are, I don't know, they're sort of like unicorns. It's like, and I asked him all these questions. I'm like, oh, you're sensitive to paper ink, like newspaper ink. And he's like, oh, yeah, I can't stand it. And like, you know what I mean? Like, so they're almost like they're super sensitive, but
Wow.
they really get the nuances
That's
in
amazing.
coffee. Yeah, yeah, I know.
Is
So
that is does he deploy that sort of only towards coffee? Because that sounds like something that's universally if you're just tasting any wine or food or
yeah, it's everything, like he doesn't like spicy food. It's like you just get the nuances and stuff, which
yeah.
is great. And like, a sommelier, for example, or like a Q grader in coffee, they're basically equivalents. Like
Hmm.
you are trying to discern that nuance and to
Yeah.
grade, and so like someone who's a super taster tends to be a very good
Yeah.
coffee cupper, but like you're not going to want to go out to dinner with them to like a
Yeah.
Mexican place because
Well,
they're
that's
going to be like
you know
way too spicy.
that's like always something I've thought about for people that have like incredibly perceptive palates is
Yeah.
one, yeah, I wonder how enjoyable things are when like
Right.
every little element, and then two, is it sort of a bias if you're trying to measure subjectively or objectively how good something is, because if most people can't even taste what you're tasting,
Oh
um, you
yeah.
know,
Yeah.
do they will they like it more or less because of that? Um, and yeah, it becomes like this very skewed uh, evaluation of something if you have that like really 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 intense like ability to perceive things.
If I had a coffee company and a super taster came to my place, I would want them to really like my coffees. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, oh, okay,
Yeah,
like I'm doing, you know what I mean? Like you're getting these nuances and I'm doing a great job. Like I'm bringing out the essence of what's here.
yeah,
And it's not going to be too, well, I guess it could be maybe, yeah, maybe if it's like a natural that's like just looks exploding with like berry flavors or,
yeah.
and that's interesting too. They might not like it because it tastes fermenty and stuff. But I think like having that, I don't know. Anyways, I think it's like a really interesting, like he's actually a coffee geek and he's an engineer and he just happens to be a super taster. And so he's like improved the lid. So anyways, like I love that. He's just like such a character. So I'm working with him right now
I think that's
on,
such a smart way to go about like yeah like brand building and differentiation is like the just embracing the things that are your
yeah,
whatever makes you unique. It's funny, I think about my kids all the time. Like I'm
yeah.
really adamant about, anything that is, whether it seems like a strength or a weakness, just like
Mm-hmm.
own it and like figure out how that becomes, even if it's a weakness, how does that become like what makes you you, and embrace it as opposed to trying to hide it
Yeah,
or like run away from it. I think as
yeah.
humans,
That's
and
a
maybe
really good point.
as
Yeah, like,
because of how parenting was or something, but like for a long time, that
mm-hmm.
was never really a conversation. Like we often are like trying to like hide the things that are weaknesses, but
Mm,
in some like scenario, a
mm-hmm.
weakness is a strength in almost any, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? At least in
Mm-hmm.
one place.
You know what? That's so funny. Like I even say that to my partner. She's like this such a sensitive soul, and gets, struggles with anxiety and depression
Mm-hmm.
and feels things like so extremely,
Yeah.
but like, I say to her, when especially when she's down, I'm like, this is what makes you so great is you get people, you're so sympathetic and you're empathic and, like that's also your strength. Like you are so attuned, she's so in tune with how other people are feeling. And
Yeah.
she can see when someone's a little uncomfortable, like at a party or whatever, and she'll go over to them and talk to them or get them something. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, I'm not like that, unfortunately. Like I'll
Yeah.
just be
Well, not
talking
unfortunately. It's
or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah, whatever.
yeah.
That's me, my
We
strength
all have
and
our yeah.
yeah, differences. But
I
yeah, and
I just had that conversation in couples therapy last night with my wife because
oh,
we're
yeah,
she is like
yeah,
incredibly empathetic and feels so much, and there's so
yeah,
much like beauty in that,
mm-hmm,
and of course it becomes really tough because that also creates anxiety and all the other things for
yeah,
for herself. And I'm
mm-hmm,
the opposite where like I have like very
yeah,
little emotion, and it's there's a lot of downside to that. But then of course as it relates to like being an entrepreneur or like building businesses, that
mm-hmm.
becomes like this huge superpower, right? Because you just
Oh,
keep going, and there
keep
isn't like a
going. Yeah. Oh my
um
God. Yeah. Yeah. It would be
but
hard. Being an entrepreneur, it's hard to be a real sensitive soul. Or, you know what I mean? You just have to like have this exterior of like, okay, next. Didn't
yeah.
work. Next. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that was a huge screw up. Next.
Yeah.
or,
Yeah. Yeah.
it'd
It's
be great
basically
if it was
like
all victories, but
yeah, being an entrepreneur I feel like is about like 99 shit shows for every one, awesome thing. And you just gotta
right.
like, be okay with all the shit shows and things that go wrong because it's the one,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta get one thing right every, every day or week or
Totally.
month or whatever it is. And not
Yeah.
like go into deep, dark depression every time something goes wrong.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, and also, like, I think, like, framing it that way with her, it's like, it's okay that you feel so intense right now about this. It'll pass, and this is part of your superpower,
Yeah.
but, like, so I think that's also part of the whole, like, depression cycle, right? It's, like, feeling this certain kind of way, like, everything feels, like, so overwhelming. You're like, "It'll pass."
Yeah.
And what you're feeling is valid. Like, I'm sorry that you're feeling it so strongly. Like, I should probably feel it. Like, you're not wrong, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But yeah. So,
That was
anyways,
a
yeah, I think
that was a
finding
big
the
unlock for me with because I am terrible at like I just am not great at like perceiving like those emotions, and then
mm,
I always want to fix things. I don't know if
no, me too.
obviously people are some people are like that. And
Yeah.
what I somebody told me something recently. I forget who, but when someone, especially if somebody is that sort of empath and they're depressed or feeling down, whatever the thing is, the best thing is actually just to be that with them and be there with them,
Mhm.
and not like try to fix it for them because
Oh, yeah,
because then they
that's
feel
right.
like they're
Yeah.
more alone, that they're
Sounds like
like
we're the same.
yeah,
Yeah, I know. That's because I'm the same way. I think it's just like I don't know, it's maybe that's what makes us good entrepreneurs or because 'cause we're like, "Oh, that's broken, fix it." "Oh, well, how do we correct that? Oh, that person didn't show up, like, let's call this person." We're always, like, troubleshooting, 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 And so I've only recently realized this and is like, I don't have to solve things. It's
yeah,
not a problem to be solved, but just be like, "That sucks that you're feeling that way." You know what
yeah,
I mean? And just, like,
yeah,
be empathic and be like, you're not wrong, like, that
yeah,
sucks, and it'll pass, but, like, and what do like, just turn off for the day, like, you don't need to finish the day, just, like, chill out, or just go for a walk or whatever, but, like, don't worry about anything, like,
I
just
know.
feel it and get through it.
It's so
Yeah.
hard too, and it also, I don't know about you. I'm like, why am I like in my mid 40s almost, and I'm only starting to figure out like, oh yeah, maybe I should I
Oh,
should
I
emotionally
know.
connect with people.
I don't know. I mean, I
you
think
know,
like, yeah, we're just always going to be learning, and I
yeah,
think like hopefully until the day I die, just like
yeah,
growing and getting better and learning. But yeah, I feel that. Same. Like I never really went to therapy until recently, just around COVID, where I
yeah,
was just like, I was so depressed. I'm like, And I saw this therapist like on Zoom or whatever, and like first meeting, she was like, "You're an extrovert. No wonder you're depressed." And I'm like, "I am?" You know? I like had no idea. I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." And she's like, and I was working remotely and she was like, "Oh, that job's not right for you." I'm like, "Oh, the job's great. I will get out. I will be around people, but yeah, I think like COVID just like made me realize like, gosh, I get energy from people. I need to be around people, even if it's just a stupid little interaction at the grocery store.
Yeah.
It helps me. It like gives me some energy, but like, staying in day after day, just with one other person was not enough. And I was just
No,
like,
no.
oh
I don't
my
think it's good for
God.
anybody.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I don't know. Some people I feel like they're writing books and making movies. I think
yeah.
certain people are just like true introverts and they're like, no, I think, yeah, it'd be great. But
Yeah.
it's not me at all.
Um, well, this was awesome.
Oh yeah. Oh
I
my God. It
can't
was
believe
so
it's been
great.
this I can't believe it's been
Yeah.
this long since we caught up. I don't remember how we got I think I saw you writing about something or talking about something on
Oh,
LinkedIn. I was like,
maybe
"Oh my
on
God,
LinkedIn or
Darleen."
whatever. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Well, what's going on? Tell me about you. Like, tell me about meez. How's it going? It seems like you've raised a ton of money and you're building this cool company and lots of restaurants are using it. Like, tell me.
yeah, I mean, look, I love what I'm doing here. There's times I miss cooking, but I really love what we're building, and I realized that I
Mm-hmm.
started looking for this tool when I was running Bark actually, and it didn't
Mm,
exist. And all I could find was like finance software. I'm like, why is there not like a tool for like the things we do in the kitchen? So I was like really excited to like get into this and build this. And it was obviously I had no idea what it was like to build software. Um,
mm-hmm.
but it spent a lot of time prior, like, like researching and learning and yeah, we launched in like 2021 and it's been
Wow.
awesome. Like, I think, we're really blessed. Like, I mean, we're selling to an industry that I love and that I've, spent my whole life in. So, I'm
Yeah.
just like solving problems that I wanted to have solved. So it's fun. And we
That's
have like
cool.
30,000 some odd kitchens and chefs
Oh, wow.
using the
That's
tool
amazing. Yeah.
and growing really fast. And yeah, we raised a bunch of cash, although like I, I'm not a big fan of raising money, but it's a necessity, especially
Mm-hmm.
when you are building technology and you want to like make sure you keep innovating.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's good, and we're doing some new things now with like helping you know chefs and mixologists and anybody with like how to get more value out of their like IP, their recipes, and then we created this
Mm-hmm.
media this network of all these shows and podcasts and blogs and things related to all the stuff we love about the industry. So it's been a lot of
Yeah.
fun and it's going really
That's
well. And we
awesome.
just keep growing
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's interesting. It's all about growth in this in this space. So
Mm-hmm.
so one thing I've been trying to like work on is balancing the speed of growth with
Mm.
just being way more mindful of like all the like stuff we've already have in like out in the market that customers are using and making sure that we're like improving those things. Because
Mhm.
when you raise capital for venture, it's you start this kind of like you start this race that's basically as soon as you start raising from venture capital, they're like, okay, keep growing, keep tripling and do whatever you need to do
Mhm.
to triple. And you can do that if you figure out the model. But at some point, yeah,
Hmm.
there's you're like, are you doing this so you can keep growing, or are you doing this so you can like have this impact on the industry? And so
Mm.
that's been something I've been thinking about a lot lately. But generally speaking,
Interesting.
I love I love what we're building. It's awesome.
That's cool. Like, yeah, growing, like doing something totally different. Do you have an advisor or like who's helping you with the financial part of it?
I just had to learn all that, honestly. I mean, I have like,
Really?
I mean, I do have. I mean, I've like had a lot of help along the way. But prior to prior to launching Meez, I was when I after Bark, I started at this restaurant group called Orify Brands, and I became the chief operating officer. That was not the plan, but they had these the CEOs, these guys John and Andy, and they used to own a bunch of Dunkin' Donuts actually in Subways, and then they
Hmm.
bought five guys in New York, and then we just started building brands within that company, That's
Hmm.
actually where I built meez, and they funded the initial part of it. And
Oh,
they were a
cool.
huge help in just like starting to understand more of like unit economics and fundraising, at least at a sort of, um, fundamental level, because they
Mm-hmm.
came from a very different, background than me. And I had never really interacted with people like that. And
Yeah.
they were super smart. So they were very helpful in the beginning, um,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the CFO, this guy named Rob Garrett. Um, and then along the way, I've had like really, like I've gotten really lucky with like really incredible investors, like, uh,
Hmm.
from all walks of life, like hospitality and other technology companies. And,
Mm-hmm.
like we have like the co-founder of Instacart is one of our investors, and Bento
Oh,
Box
wow.
and Superhuman,
Oh my God, that's
um, and
amazing.
like all these
Wow.
like, and growth folks like Lenny Wachitsky, like a lot of folks that just,
Yeah.
both are great for just like network and also just
Mm-hmm.
asking questions, So
Yeah.
I feel like that was something I learned with the restaurants is you got to find really like investors that, I mean, I had really caring investors at Park, um, but like finding investors that actually really,
Mm-hmm.
know a lot more than you about things that you have to make sure you get right, you know?
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Honestly, yeah, that's amazing. Do you
Yeah.
think this is gonna be you think you'll have companies after this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's like I have to whisper that because my wife's like, "Dude, why do you keep starting more businesses?" I'm like, "Because I love it. Like I love this year." And now, to be honest with you, now I cooked for like 20 years. Like that's what I did was a cook, and I didn't know anything about like starting
But for other
businesses.
people, not at Bark. You didn't do that at Bark.
No, no, like cooking for mostly like in the fine dining world. Like I cooked at like high end restaurants for a
Yeah.
very long time, and
Mhm.
I didn't even think about like what being an entrepreneur or starting businesses, and so I really didn't start learning about that until, you know my mid 30s, late 30s, and
Really? Wow.
yeah,
How old
and
were you
then
when you opened Bark? 30?
28, yeah.
Oh, okay. I did gorilla when I was 30. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and now like I've learned so much more about starting a business and
Yeah.
understanding the TAM and understanding the importance of distribution and what's your go to
Um,
market. Like there's so many things that like,
yeah, geez.
that you want to make sure you ask yourself and you answer before you start a business. On
Mhm.
top of just like making sure that you really love the thing that you're going to do.
Mhm.
That like I'm excited to keep doing it because, it's like anything. It's funny. It's like, you know, I learned so much about cooking, like you did about coffee and
Mhm.
branding. I became an expert in this field of like cooking at a high level, and that was like
Mhm.
15 years of doing that. And like,
Yeah.
now I'm just doing the same thing in the entrepreneurial world, and it's just like you
Mhm.
just have it's just time, like over the course
Yeah.
of like hundreds and hundreds of like terrible mistakes and dumb decisions, and you
Mhm.
just I think that you just keep learning these things. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for more businesses because,
That's cool.
um,
Yeah.
it's fun.
Mhm.
What about you?
Same, like, I really like what I'm doing now, like, helping other people, um, with their brands and stuff. But yeah, I don't know, like, there's always a part of me that, like, wants and I think it'll just happen, if it's like a me's for me, or you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, how do I don't know if it's tool or if it's a particular product, but,
you make such
yeah,
great brands, though. I mean, like, it's
thanks.
so funny. Like, there's so many, like, just for example, coffee shops, and like,
Mhm.
how many do you actually remember? And,
Yeah.
um, like with Gorilla, and even with Supercrown, because I didn't get to interact with that a lot because I'd
Mm.
already moved, but I did a little bit.
Mhm.
There's like you when you can evoke that feeling. Like I remember,
Mm.
I remember the
Thanks.
feeling of being in that shop and the
Mhm.
countertops, and when you started adding the new additions for them of like where the
Mhm.
scales would be, and them doing the pour
Yeah.
overs, and
Yeah.
just like and there's the brand and like the very like um, like the bag, you knew the bag right away when you saw it with the grill on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for you to create more
Thanks.
companies too.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun doing it now. Like, I helped with someone with we call it a brand refresh, but it's a total rebrand. This guy that bought a roaster in Reno that had been around since 1990. Kept the name, but we're like, let's just, but he's got a pretty iconic brand right now. It's sort of like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a graphic designer, but like I do kind of like help with positioning. And like, I feel like I'm like a creative director in a way. Is like, I'm very comfortable. I think like having worked with designers, when I was a general manager, and like a lot of my friends are designers. So just like kind of know how to talk to them in a way that they get, and like kind of bring out this essence. And in the end, like it's I feel very strongly that that brand, especially with an independent company, the brand is like some reflection of that owner. It's bringing some essence out of that owner because they're the one that's behind it, and that's helping them shape that vision, but it's around their kind of uniqueness. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I think it's
absolutely.
like amazing that like this guy who's like his whole story has been he's an engineer that created a lid. And I'm like, you're a coffee geek who's a super taster and an engineer that created a lid. And so
Yeah.
that makes even more sense. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
100%.
But yeah, so I love that. And if I can do this for the rest of my life, maybe do something else also. But just helping folks kind of find that uniqueness and like how to, I don't know, just kind of like dive into that more,
Yeah. I love
you
that.
know?
I love that like vantage of considering how to build a brand. Um,
Yeah.
well, thank you for
Oh my
taking
God.
some
Yeah.
time
Thanks. It was
today.
great catching up with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.